Well, good morning. Welcome to Caffeinate Your Career. Today's topic is interview mistakes. I'm your host, the career coach with the most, Jason Albert. With me today, back again, the renowned, world famous recruiter, Scott Butnick.
They couldn't keep me out the door.
Scott, thanks for being here.
They tried, but they couldn't keep me out of the door.
For Caffeinate Your Career. I'm checking to see if we are live. Oh, that's not right. Let's try this. And are we live? You can't tell. See? All right, I'm going to figure that out. So, Scott, you were here a few weeks ago, and we had... okay, we are live.
Okay,
all right, perfect. Okay, and I can hear me on the live stream, so audio is working. That was the thing. There is. Thank you, Michael Rosenberg, for telling me that we are live and you can hear me. As we went through the whole thing, and the audio, actually, one of the three platforms that we use for streaming, the audio had gotten turned off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And me and you we were spitting fire.
I'll tell you what.
It
was a great show, folks.
You missed it. But Scott was nice enough to come back and do it again because it was a really good topic and we did very well.
So we're going to leave and just roll that one back. And we'll see you next week.
You won't be able to hear it. That was my other problem with that. Is Scott, I thought we could the audio was recording and it recorded the whole thing, but because that one platform had the audio turned off, it meant that the microphone that is attached to it, which is embedded in the computer, also did not record. Because my thought was, we'll just put it on the podcast and YouTube, it'll be great. Right. And it just, the whole thing, and we were talking, and I explained how streaming works last week, but if one thing goes wrong, everything goes wrong.
Well, what you do is, so this is the way you put the spin on that whole episode. You tell people this is the episode about how to be an active listener. And you really have to listen hard to people, okay? You really should be dialed in, ladies and gentlemen.
That's so funny.
Anyway.
Well, so interview mistakes, if you want the job, you're going to have to interview.
You're going to have to interview.
And you want to make sure that you are prepared for the interview. And we're going to go over some mistakes that people should be avoiding. The first one, Scott, is going to be lack of preparation.
Yeah, you hear this a lot, and I know the folks watching this morning see this. I know that a lot of you guys read the online journals about how to be a good candidate. Why is preparation important, and why are we talking about it this morning? And here's why. When you go to interview for a job, I dare say, you should be a little nervous, not overwrought. Okay, not to the extent that you can't control yourself, but we've talked about this before. Let your nervousness come out as excitement, enthusiasm. Right. There's one of the oldest sayings: if you want to be enthusiastic, act enthusiastic. So you say, so how do I balance that? How do I put the lid on the nervousness so I'm within myself and I'm at my best that day? And the answer to that is preparation. Okay,
right.
I think baseball players, professional athletes, typically you hear stories about men and women in the locker room of their sport that have nausea. They get. I know. I've heard this about NFL guys. They're nervous. They're nauseous. How do you overcome that? Preparation.
Yeah.
Okay. That's why this is important, because when you prepare, you feel a modicum of confidence. Now, your next question is going to be, how do I know what to prepare about? We don't know. We can't answer that question. But some preparation will make you feel better about yourself. And when you feel confidence, knowledge is confidence, and the reverse is also true. Okay? So you're confident, and that makes you a better candidate. Because the other thing that there's no doubt about, I saw this too many times. This is a performance. We don't want to get overwrought. We don't want to get, just focused on performing for the hiring manager or the recruiter, but it is a performance. What do performers tell you? I prepare,
Right.
And again, it's worth, at the risk of being a little redundant, how do I know what to prepare for? You don't. So you prepare for a few things.
Right. So one of the things that is on the bullet points in this is to practice answering general interview type of questions. Right?
Or learn, and learn things about the company, learn things about the person that's going to be interviewing you. You can use LinkedIn where you are this morning to get that kind of information.
Yes.
It just helps. There's no guarantee that you're going to have the opportunity to use it.
Yeah.
But if you do, it could be a breakthrough moment in the interview.
Yeah, I like to say that, like, the interview itself, it's like a test that you have the answers for.
No doubt.
Some questions could be popping up.
Yeah.
You have to know how to answer those questions succinctly within about 90 seconds and be able to move on to the next question. They could be asking you, what's your greatest strength? What's your greatest weakness? So, Scott, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah.
Tell me about a time you failed. Those behavioral-based questions.
Yeah.
Do you have questions for me? Like, some of those are coming. You need to know how to answer them. And I think probably the one mistake I see job hunters make more than any other is they do not practice enough.
No, right. And therein lies the answer to the question, how do I prepare? Can't guarantee you what behavioral question you're going to get asked.
No.
But if you're going into a job this is my favorite example of this. If you're going to interview for a job in retail, you can be reasonably certain that if they're going to ask behavioral questions, because not everybody, they should, but not everybody does.
Right.
But you can be reasonably certain that they're going to ask you, tell me about a time you had a difficult customer that you had to deal with, and what did you do? What was the customer presenting? What did you do about it? What was the outcome? If you think about the answer to that question as the foundation, you can now start to think about the answer to questions that you may not know were coming in a behavioral environment.
Yes.
Okay?
Right.
And so now, hey, guess what? You just prepared. Okay. Now you think, now you look up Jason Hopper on LinkedIn because he's going to be interviewing you. And you see Jason Hopper went to UT or went to UTSA or went to UTD or went to UNT. And somebody, oh yeah, UNT, that's a great school. Because this, and I'm probably getting too far afield, this takes the interview to the promised land. It becomes a conversation.
Yeah.
Okay.
It should ideally be a conversation, or be more like tennis, like back and forth and back and forth.
Yeah.
Right. Where it is conversational, and yes, if you are able to connect with the recruiter and or hiring manager on more of a personal level,
you win.
You're going to win.
You
I
win.
think that a lot of people, they look at LinkedIn and they're like, oh, LinkedIn's business. But we're also people, right?
It's relationships.
That's right. And that's one of the reasons why, if you go and you look at my headline, you will see personal stuff that I've put in there on the headline. It's those talking pieces. So one of the things that I have written on there is, I have two personal things in the headline. One is avid walker.
Uh-huh.
Right? I walk anywhere from 5 to 8 miles a day. The other is comic book geek. Because I've been collecting comic books since I was like young, and I've got over 7,000 comic books easily, mostly in my attic. That is a talking point. If you are coming to interview with me, okay?
Yeah.
And say, hey, Jason, just in full transparency, I looked you up on LinkedIn to prepare for this. You're a comic book geek. Who's your favorite superhero?
Yeah.
And now I'm going to answer the question, right? I'm not going to be like, oh, we're not going to talk about superheroes today.
No,
I'm going to answer the question.
Because if you do, that tells the candidate probably not the right company for them.
Yes.
And
Right.
it happens.
Well,
It does happen,
yeah,
you
if
know.
you start in the middle of it and the person that you're talking
Cuts
to
you off.
cuts you off,
Yeah.
that's not a good sign.
That's not a good sign. And just in case you do ever interview with Jason, ask him about the time he was reading a comic book while he was walking and he walked into a telephone pole. The telephone pole was never the same.
Scott, that's just silly.
It's a mashup, folks.
Although I love it, and I have not walked into a telephone. I did walk. You know, it's funny. I was walking, so I go like the same route, and then there's this tree, and the branches like overhang, and I know it's there. In fact, I'm walking, and I was looking at my phone, and I looked up. I'm like, oh yeah, there's a tree. You need to go around, and and then I looked back down at my phone, but I didn't realize the distance between the branches of the tree and where I was, and I ran right into that thing, and I was like, oh, yeah. And then all of a sudden I ain't behind me because there was a dude walking behind me. I hear him laugh, and he's almost doubled over laughing, and I was like, all right, dude, I ran into the tree.
Yeah, that's embarrassing.
It happens. Okay. So...
But that's the key on preparation. It makes you more, it'll allow you to feel some confidence.
Yes.
And you're a better candidate. Again, confident, not arrogant. And there's a line there. And that's for another show.
Well, let's stick on that for a minute because
Okay.
I think that's important. I think the difference between the two, between being cocky and being confident, is if you are confident, you are able to point to metrics and things that you have done and achieved. Whereas if you're cocky, it's like, oh, I'm the best. Well, why are you the best? I'm the best because I've done X, right?
And tell the story.
Right.
Tell the story.
That's important too. If you are able to convey why it is that you have or should be sitting in that chair, you are winning. Period.
Yeah.
That's the difference between the two.
Yeah. And by winning, this is how I can solve your problems, which is something we've talked about ad infinitum.
That's why employers hire people, is
That's
to
exactly
solve their
right.
problems.
Yeah.
If you don't understand, if you're not prepared enough and you don't understand the job description, you don't understand the problem you're there to solve.
That's right.
So when we talk about preparation, yes, look up the interviewer, look up the company, look up read the job description, understand the role and why you are there to solve that problem. That's the whole. People don't understand the interview process. They think that they think that the reason for the interview is for them to get the job. That's not the purpose of the interview. The interview is for you to sit there and listen. And determine whether or not you are able to solve their problem. And then sell yourself as the best person for that job.
That's it.
Another common interview mistake, Scott, arriving late.
Yeah, here's what I think the best way to encapsulate this is this way. When you're interviewing, whether it's, again, a recruiter or a hiring manager or somebody in between, they're looking at you in terms of they're looking at you from a couple different directions. One of the ways is, I know I did this. How are you going to behave? And behave is it's not a pejorative.
Yeah,
right? It's not condescending. How are you going to behave? How are you going to act in front of my customers?
Right.
And my clients and the partners that I know you'll be interacting with. And if you're late for our appointment, that's not a check mark in your column, okay? Now, and let's not discount the personal affront of somebody being late for an appointment, okay? But really, I had people show up late when I was recruiting, and it happens, okay? And some had good excuses and good reasons, and some didn't. And there was a sense of being personally affronted by it. But immediately my mind's thinking, so when you have an appointment with one of our clients, that we've spent a couple $100,000 to attract this client, and then you're going to be late for it. It doesn't matter to you, okay?
Right.
And that's what being late. That's why it puts you so far behind the 8 ball. And yet stuff happens. We know that, okay? Stuff happens. So you try. If you're late and you got hung up in traffic, you explain it. Try to be sincere about it. Be sincere. Don't try. Be sincere.
I think, if you're stuck in traffic, you better be in contact with your. There is no excuse. Like your phone,
Right.
you can text,
Yeah.
you can call, you can email, all from the phone, and let them know, hey, I don't know what's happening out here, but Dallas Parkway is a parking lot. We're not even moving,
Yeah.
right? Because there should be constant updates of what's going on with you. And I know, like, I would oftentimes set appointments back to back to back, right? Let the man, especially when I was doing corporate, because I let the manager know, okay, I'm seeing civil from 9 to 10 ish. Can you talk to them at 10 if I like them?
Mm-hmm.
If I think they're going to be good, can you be available? Yep, I'll be available. But now it's 9:30 and you're still not here.
Because you have to keep it real. And if you have a good candidate who unfortunately was late, maybe in your judgment you shouldn't blow up the meeting.
Yeah, well, that's right. Well, everybody's situation is different.
Right.
I think too. So arriving late, but also you don't want to arrive too early either.
No. I was going to say, I'm glad you mentioned it. If it's a good idea when you're going to have an interview meeting to get somewhere early. But because you get there early doesn't mean you have to report early.
Yes.
Okay. So my favorite quote on this, and if you're not familiar with him, great football coach Vince Lombardi said, "Never be later than 15 minutes early for an appointment." But I can remember times that people were 15, 20, 25 minutes early, and it's like, as a recruiter, it's also do you follow directions? We agreed on a time.
Yes.
Okay. Now, 10 up to 15 minutes early. Okay, you're probably going to wait because I'm probably engaged in some other activity.
Yes.
Okay? But that's okay. As long as I don't keep you waiting past our appointed time, and which brings up how long should you wait? We can talk about that. But being early, it's the opposite. It's the other side of the equation vis-a-vis time management.
Yes.
Okay? And you should try to get to the appointment early, because I have found, this is just very intuitive on my part. When I leave early for somewhere, I get there early. When I leave on time, when I leave where I am on time, I'm late for the appointment.
Yes.
Okay.
I think I suggest that clients arrive 30 minutes early because, again, you don't know for traffic, right? Yeah. Nobody planned that there would be traffic or a train wreck or bats stealing children in the front yards. I don't even know. Halloween's coming up. Bats are a really main concern. But 30 minutes early, do not walk into the building until 10 minutes before time.
Yeah.
That is plenty of time. And if anything more than that, and you're putting undue stress on the interviewer, because like you said, you might be in the middle of doing something, and it's like, oh, Scott's here, and it's like, oh crap, I got to finish this up real quick, or wrap up my other interview or this meeting, so I can, because we don't want to keep people waiting.
No,
it's rude.
You don't. But at the same time, if somebody's more than 5 minutes, if somebody's 5 minutes early, I might bring them into my office and wrap up something if it's something that isn't confidential. But if you're 10 minutes early, good for you, but you're going to wait.
Yeah, you're going to wait.
You're going to wait.
You are.
Because I'm definitely in the middle of something leading up to our appointment. But it's not for the recruiter, but for yourself. Remove the stress from the situation. Get there a half an hour early, like Jason says. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, well, that too, because you're not rushing to get where you're supposed to go. I have I've got two stories about I went to go interview at a staffing agency, and I was 30 minutes early, and they were in a very large building, and so I had no idea what floor they're on, nothing like that, right? So I get there, it's like, I'm supposed to be interviewing, at like 8:30 or something, so it's super early. There's nobody in the building. I walk in though, and I look to the right, and there's the company. And so I'm like, oh my gosh. So the light was on. I couldn't see anybody. So I kind of like went around the corner and I sat down, right, on the other side of the lobby. And I'm sitting there and I'm practicing my answers. Practicing my answers.
Good boy.
Now people are starting to come in and they see me just sitting there and they just kind of like nod at me, acknowledge that I'm a human being that's sitting, and I'm just okay, hi, I nod at them. So now it's 10 minutes till, and so I get up and I go to the lobby and I walk in and let the front desk person know that I'm there, and every person that just passed me in the lobby is in the staffing company. They're like, weren't you the guy in the lobby?
He was talking to himself?
Yeah, that was talking to himself. That's right. The other story I have is also funny. We used to have another location. We had this main building here in JFS. We had a satellite office where some administrative and accounting people sat. And so my first interview was here in this building with Allison.
Mm-hmm.
And then I came back 2 days later to go to the other building and interview with Kathy.
Okay.
So I'm bad with directions, Scott. I have to go the same way home and back, or I will get lost.
Okay.
I just am terrible with direction. So now I'm driving, and Siri's telling me where to go, and I'm driving, and on the way there, I realize all of a sudden I forgot to brush my teeth. Oops.
When you get in the car.
Siri's talking to you again.
I forgot to brush my teeth. So what happened was I got out of the shower, and that's usually put clothes on and brush my teeth. And so I got out of the shower and immediately put clothes on, including my suit, and just skipped that part because I'm practicing answers in my head. And now I'm like, I didn't brush my teeth. So I find the place. It's on Dallas Parkway. I find the location where I'm supposed to be. Again, this is why it's important to be early. And so now I'm like, I got to figure something out. So I drove like just right up the street to the convenience store, bought a pack of gum, like the icebreaker gum, those little like chiclet like gum, and just shoved all the gum in my mouth and was chewing up all of the gum so I'd have minty fresh breath when I sat down with Kathy. I walked in, I literally a ball of gum. I took it out as I was walking into the building and threw it in the trash.
That's pretty good.
But I couldn't have done that if I had not been early to begin with.
There you go.
Right? So,
yeah.
All right. You had a good point a minute ago. It's like, how long should you wait? If the recruiter keeps you waiting.
I say 15 minutes.
Okay? Yeah, for sure.
Longer than that, it first of all, so a couple things start to happen. One, you get uncomfortable when you're waiting. And again, you've heard me say this, Jason, you get one bite at the apple. So you have to be at your best, okay? And after 15 minutes, but Scott, I want the job, and the only chance I'm going to have is the interview. But you have to be at your best. And after 15 minutes, either you're fidgeting. I think people start to fidget, that, what's going on, what's happening, did I screw something up, like that. And suddenly you pass that point of no return where you're not at your best. So get up, go back, see if you can connect with somebody at the place and say, obviously this isn't a good day for Jason. He's obviously behind. Let him know that I'd be most interested in rescheduling. Okay.
I think it's rude too. It's just rude.
Well, it also tells you, it may tell you something about the person you're interviewing with and or the company. Yeah. So you have to think about that. But if you're sitting there half hour and I'm picking on you, and Jason walks out and says, well, we're ready for the meeting. So you look desperate. You never want to look desperate.
Yeah,
okay,
for sure.
So I say 15 minutes, but if you're going to leave, try to connect with somebody on your way out and just let them know, hey, would you? Obviously, it's not a good day for Jason. I know it happens. Would you let them know I'd be most interested in rescheduling, and move on?
Yeah, one thing that I think job seekers forget is you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. And if they're not putting their best foot forward during the interview process in any stage of it, then it might not be the right company for you.
There's something to be said here, and this is very subjective, but there's something to be said for your stature within your industry.
Mm-hmm.
If you're watching us today and you just graduated from school in May or June, or you're going to graduate in the winter, if that happens to you, you're probably going to want to call that person after you leave. Hey, listen, I know we didn't make the connection today. I'd really be interested in, I love this opportunity, and I'd be interested in rescheduling. But if you're 20 years and you're interviewing somewhere, maybe you don't.
Yeah.
It's a function of the marketplace. Okay, I don't blame people that have like a 20-year person in an industry and they got, it happens, ladies and gentlemen. They wound up on the outside looking in. They're looking for a job, and this kind of thing happens. I wouldn't blame that person if they said to me, "I didn't call the interviewer back."
I wouldn't.
You know?
No. Well, I don't. Again, it's a time management thing, and the recruiter or hiring manager needs to manage their time. I don't know, like they're like, oh my gosh, I got pulled into a meeting with my manager, and be like, let me tell the manager, hey, I got somebody in the lobby right now. I can't talk to you right now.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah.
And off I go. That's the job I'm hired for.
Right.
Yes, we will connect later, but I can't do this now. Right.
Right. It's not the event; it's how you recover.
That's right.
So.
Yes, for sure. Inappropriate attire is always one. I just went through this with a client a few weeks back, and he had an interview. The website, because you can always go look at the website. How do the people look on the website?
Yeah.
Right? How they dress? Website was no help. The website had some people that were wearing hoodies right next to somebody standing next to somebody that has a full suit on.
Uh-huh.
And so that wasn't very helpful. I do think that unless you are like a TV news reporter, maybe a doctor, a lawyer for sure, like suit and tie culture is dead.
It could be. It could be that it is. It seems like it is to a great extent. I think, pardon me, I'm sorry. Failing anything else, ask.
Okay? That's right.
Ask. And it's okay to ask, what's the dress culture at your office? Or we're business professional. Well, that should tell you something.
There you go.
Or if you've already met somebody from the company and they were casually dressed, that should tell you something. You take your cue from that. But I'll say this. I still feel this way. And there may be a divergence here between you and I. When you don't know, play it safe, dress up. Okay, because you can, as a guy, you can always take a tie off. For the ladies, if you're wearing a blazer, you can always take the blazer off. But if you don't wear it to the meeting and you didn't know, and you find out that this is a buttoned-up company with a business professional, you're kind of SOL, and I think you all know what that means.
You can't, right? You can't like all of a sudden just put a suit back on. Right. I think that asking is always okay, especially that's what we did with my client because the company was also an Asian company, and they tend to be a little bit more
different morals, different values.
So he just asked, "Hey, your website was no help to me. What should I be wearing?" Yeah. Also, if they tell you what to wear.
Yeah.
Hey, Scott, you know what? When you come see me, we're super casual. Just wear jeans.
Yeah, sneakers,
Like, okay.
And what I say there is, this may be an oversimplification. Do what they say.
That's right. Follow directions.
Follow directions.
Yes.
Okay. And the other thing I'll add here when we talk about business professional, I like to add this. I asked, this is a number of years ago, but I asked one of my female colleagues, I said, what do you think to you? What does business professional mean for a woman? And her answer, I love to share this because it was wonderfully simple. She said, hosiery. I said, really? She said, yeah. That's what makes a woman look professionally dressed is hosiery. I said, okay, And I mean, we're not going to go off the deep end to check, but it was interesting in its simplicity. Because I know for a guy, we're looking, if it's business professional, at least a shirt and a tie.
Yeah.
Probably a coat. Doesn't have to be a suit, but probably a coat. Okay. And then if you're invited, if you see that the person interviewing you isn't wearing a coat, then you take, you can take it off. You can see if they ask you if you want to take it off. I used to do that for people. So once we made the transition to business casual.
Yeah.
So,
I think it makes sense.
but I still feel play it safe. If you don't know, dress up. Okay. Yeah.
Another interview misstep: body language.
Yeah, big one.
You need to make sure that you are sitting up straight.
Yeah.
Paying attention, lean
forward.
That's right. Listen.
Yeah.
You know?
Active listening.
It's that active listening that makes the difference.
Yeah.
Right?
And there's the all those things are very important. Lack of eye contact. Yeah, I mean you should be making eye contact with the person.
Right.
Now, what I say though is that there's also, like most equations, there are two sides. I've had people that I felt like I was interviewing a zombie because they were burning a hole through my
They were
retina.
like
That is exactly right. That's exactly
like
right.
the eyes
Okay.
all wide and crazy.
And if you had the pleasure of watching and hearing me talk on Caffeinate Your Career, I've talked about the fact that most of the interviewing I did was either retail or sales. And I'm looking for how people are interacting with me.
Yeah.
So if they're doing one of these, okay, and they're fixated on me,
Right.
that's, for lack of a better term, that's over eye contact, okay? And that also sets up an uncomfortable vibe in a conversation.
I think so. Yeah. Also, too, like you don't want to be, as you said, straight, but don't be all fidgety.
Right.
And also like remember. So I talk a lot with my hands, but like when I do, especially also too, like when I do video things, I want to make sure that I go back to like ready position, which is what table manners.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
If one hand on the table and one hand in your lap all the time, and you can continue to talk with your hands as when you make your point. Table manners. You go back to ready position, because you don't want to be. You don't want to be all like.
If you didn't, I was going to bring it up.
You don't cross arms. No. And Eve, this one's even worse. Like, because now we got spikes. We're going to fight you.
Yeah.
Right.
You don't want to. You also, I've seen people do this. You don't want to put your head in your hands. Okay, I've seen people
like
on video and on person. Well, like this. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Like that, or like this. Or even that old saying, never let them see you sweat.
Uh-huh.
Well, don't try not to exhibit stress in the meeting. Okay,
Yeah.
Look comfortable, right? Again, I'm evaluating you based on how I think you're going to behave. One of the ways I'm evaluating is how I think you're going to behave in front of my clients and my company's customers. All right. So if you're exhibiting those tendencies, well, you're probably getting behind the eight ball a little bit.
So one thing too, I think like you want to make sure that you're excited to be there.
Yeah.
Lack of enthusiasm.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, the other thing too is, people have asked me about when we've done interviewing seminars and things like that. Is it okay to talk with your hands? Yeah, it's okay to talk with your hands.
Sure.
Just don't go crazy.
Yeah.
Okay? What is it? Benjamin Franklin said, moderation is the key. Okay. And it works. But it's okay because a lot of people, that's how they demonstrate enthusiasm.
Yes.
And making a point. Okay. And, I was talking to this client, I'm telling this behavioral story, and bang, the meeting took off and he signed the deal. Good. Bang it once or twice. Yeah. But if you do that every time you answer a question, it's going to look awkward.
Yeah. Or just, it's too much.
Right. Yeah.
It's too much.
It's over the top.
Yeah. Every interviewer is going to ask if you have any questions.
Yeah.
You should have some questions prepared.
You should.
I've been really big lately on culture-based questions and asking specifically as a company, do you guys get back to the community?
Mm-hmm.
And if so, what way?
Sure.
Right? Because that'll tell, oh yes, our department goes once a month and volunteers at JFS Food Pantry. Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. Or even better, Jason, is you saw on the internet that they do that.
Right.
So you ask them something because some companies post that. The bigger companies will post that stuff somewhere on their website. So then, I noticed that your company participated in the turkey turkey handout at Jewish Family Service. I bet that was a lot of fun.
Yep.
You know?
And it shows that you've done your research.
Exactly.
As well.
Exactly. Yeah.
Make sure that you're like when you're asking questions that they're actually questions you want to know the answer to.
Yeah.
Don't ask things that you can find like on the website. That's just lazy.
Yeah. Yeah. And it asks questions that you want an answer to, but you also want to be mindful. And I don't know if I'm getting ahead of you, stop me.
Okay.
There are questions you don't want to ask at an interview. Okay?
Sure.
Don't ask about pay. Don't ask about vacation. Okay. Don't ask about benefits. Okay. If they're interested in you, you'll have that conversation.
That's
okay.
Yeah. So the pay question though, I think it's calmed down a little bit, but like when it was the pandemic, it was after how are you doing?
Yeah.
Pretty much the next question out of the recruiter's mouths, how much money are you looking for?
Yeah.
And nobody likes talking about money. It's just an uncomfortable topic, but it is an important part of the conversation because you want to get paid.
Yeah.
So you need to know how to answer the question.
But you're what I come back to is you are at maximum negotiating strength when they make you an offer. So bringing it up in a first or even a second interview.
No.
Wait, just stay away from it. And please don't ask about vacation and what's the company's sick leave policy and time off. I'll share this. That's about as close to a poison, and I've had people do it. It's as close to a poison pill as I've experienced.
I think, you don't want, hey, so I don't have the job yet, but how much longer can I not be in the office?
Yeah, right.
How much vacation time can I have so I don't have to see you?
Yeah.
That's not going to work.
As far as remote work, I mean, you saw what I think everybody out there knows what Amazon announced this past week.
Yep.
I would raise, if you want remote work, if you need remote work, ask it very early or ask it very late, but don't ask in the middle, okay? Because it makes companies nervous.
That's a good segue. Next week, Jim Warner's going to be here. That's what we're going to be talking about is remote work versus working from home. And, it's still a hot topic today.
Very much. It's getting hotter. Yeah,
for sure.
It's getting hotter.
One thing, too, is making sure that you don't talk negatively about the company or a former coworker.
Former boss.
Yeah. That is one, just bad form. And
also pretty close to poison, quite frankly.
Yeah.
It is. I might as well be blunt. Okay. It just because it's right away someone's hiring manager or recruiter, so this is the way this person's going to be thinking about us after they leave here.
Well, that, and also, too, whatever the situation was, you obviously are not over it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And I don't want you bringing that baggage in here, continuing that negative attitude going forward. I mean, because I know stuff happens. Yes, I've heard many, many stories. And it's some places are toxic. They just are.
Yeah.
But you need to, always keep the high road and be professional.
Right. Exactly right.
Yeah.
In fact, your comment about, negative, I mean, it took me, I'll admit, it took me a while. People were always telling me, this is my younger days, go into an interview, be positive. Well, what does that mean? And I'll tell you one of the ways as a recruiter I found out what it meant is if I ask you a question, unless I ask you to tell me about a negative experience, make it positive.
Yeah.
Okay. If I ask you, tell me about a time you had a difficult customer, think about one that you solved the problem. Okay.
Yeah.
And I can tell you when it doesn't happen, because this is a true story. This is from many years ago, but I've never forgotten this. I was at Bank of America, and I asked a teller candidate, tell me about a time you had a difficult customer. And she said, well, I had a disagreement with a customer, so I went in the back room and asked my boss to take over. Okay, you just got ruled out of the job.
I decided to run away.
Yeah.
Like,
or I got so nervous, I whatever, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
it tell a positive story unless, and this is important, you're asked to tell a negative one because some managers want to see and recruiters want to see how you reacted to a specific stimulus, and that's fair game.
Sure.
It's fair game. If they tell you, and I've done that. I've said to people, tell me about the worst experience you had with a customer that you couldn't resolve, and people won't answer the question. And see that's an issue.
Well, that's the other part of that. You have to ask or answer the question that they ask
That's
you.
exactly right.
And
That's so important.
you can't dance around it. You can't be like, trying to hide or
Right.
just come up. You have to answer the question.
Ladies and gentlemen, people know you're not perfect. What we want to know is how did you deal with the situation in which you weren't perfect?
Yes.
It's okay.
What'd you
Remember,
do?
it's not the event; it's the recovery. So anyway,
Yeah, well, that too is like and the last point that we're going to do is like talking too much or talking too little.
Yeah.
You can't just say, if you ask the question, you can't just go yes
right.
and then stop talking. You have to have something back it up. And conversely, you can't, when they ask the question, you need to have your story trimmed down
Concise.
to about 90 seconds, a minute and a half.
And if you ask yourself, well, am I supposed to run a timer? Well, of course not. But that's why you practice.
That's why you
That's
that's
why you
right.
practice.
Well, I tell clients, and I will go through this with clients, and especially if I'm going to do a mock interview with the client, is I pull out my phone and get the stopwatch, and I'll ask them a question, and I hit go, and I time them,
Mm-hmm.
and I write down what their answer is and the time next to it.
The other, this is subjective also, but the other thing that addresses this is make your answer interesting. Because if you make it interesting, try to engage. There's nothing wrong with answering a behavioral question. And then I'm interviewing with Jason, and I'm telling him about a customer that was difficult. Did this ever happen to you, Jason? Make it interactive. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
You're getting closer to a conversation. And again, I don't think I can overemphasize this. The closer you get to a conversation, the closer you get to a successful interview.
Right, as they're able to think about it a lot more.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, oh, we had a really good conversation.
And if you're interviewing in an industry in which you've had experience, that company's engaged in the same business, the person across the table probably has encountered that situation.
Probably,
Okay.
yeah.
So answer the question and then maybe throw in at some point, doesn't have to be at the end, but as you're explaining it, say, I bet this has happened to you. No, it hasn't. Oh, okay, go on with the rest of your story.
Oh,
Okay. But maybe it has, and now you're having a back and forth about it.
I think the last bit, closing. You've got to close. You've got to let the employer know that you want to work there and you're not getting the job.
That's right. I mean, it's critical, and it's something you should practice also. And it's got to end on an up note, and it's got to end with some enthusiasm.
Yes.
Right? With a fair amount of enthusiasm. Don't jump into the person's lap. Sorry.
I was going to take a drink of water. I almost had to do.
I timed that well,
You
didn't
did.
I?
That was almost a spit take.
You again, moderation is the key, but you do want to close. And I'm amped up about this opportunity. I was from the moment you reached out to me, Mr. Interviewer or Ms. Interviewer. And you use that. One of your questions should be, I think, there's differing opinions. What are next steps? Okay. I don't like when are you going to make a decision because that puts people on edge. What are the next steps?
It's also a weird question. It's like, well, as soon as I find the right person.
Exactly.
Hey, am I the right person?
Yeah.
Well.
Which is what I've said to people that ask me that.
Yeah.
Well, no, we don't know the answer to that quite yet.
Yeah. We have other people to talk to.
That's right.
All right.
And we generally do.
Yeah. Scott, so we're about at time. We're a little over time, but it went very fast. Fun question for the day. What is your favorite seafood?
Well, I'll give you a really cheap answer because I don't eat a lot of seafood. I could say tuna.
Yeah.
But I also like salmon.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you put salmon or tuna, or if I get a little bit more eclectic, mahi. I like mahi.
That's good too. Yeah.
It's a mild fish.
Yeah.
So if you gave me a choice of the three, if it was dinner, I'd say salmon. If it was lunch, hey, I'll make you a sandwich with some seafood. What would you like? Tuna.
Tuna.
Okay.
It's easy. I'm having tuna later.
Are you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm pescatarian. I only eat seafood, so I go through phases as well.
And religion is not a factor in the interview.
I'll eat like lots of. I'll go through a phase where I eat a lot of tuna. I'll go through a phase where I eat a lot of salmon, mahi, cod.
Yeah.
A lot of cod.
I'll eat fish and chips sometimes. When we were over in the UK, it almost became a running joke. My wife would order something, and she'd say, "And he'll have the fish and chips."
So hopefully you.
Whatever you say, sweetheart.
That's right. All right, guys. This has been Caffeinate Your Career for this week. Next week, Jim Warner will be back, and we will be discussing work from home and remote work. So come on back for that. Everybody have a great week. We'll see you then. And Scott, you'll be back soonish.
I'm looking forward to it. And listen to Jim. He knows his stuff.
Jim's awesome. All right. Bye, guys.